I've been attending Halloween Horror Nights for 10 years now, and I have gone through so many haunted houses that it's hard for me to even keep up with everything that I've gone through. But in that time, I have built a master list of every house that I have enjoyed and loved ever so much. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 original haunted houses that I've ever gone through at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando. And now, if you're wondering what the difference is between original houses and everything else, go ahead and check out the intellectual property video that I put out last week, which was my top 10 IP houses that I've ever gone through. Now, those are going to be movies, TV shows, books, video games, etc. Those are all going to be in there. Those haunted houses that are based on those types of things. This is going to be a video that is completely based upon the original content houses, meaning that it is an entire original concept created by Universal Orlando Resort and the Halloween Horror Nights team. So, to start it off, we're going to go in with my number 10. It's from HHN 30, and that is Wicked Growth Realm of the Pumpkin. And this is honestly one of the coolest houses I've ever gone through, just from the facade alone. Looking into it and seeing that tunnel from the outside, essentially seeing the birth of Little Boo too. But seeing that pumpkin tunnel walking into this house really gave you the feels of Halloween. This house accentuated everything you wanted from a Halloween-based haunted house. And it was really nice to get the origin story of the Pumpkin Lord. Being able to delve into his originality was really nice. And along with that, the sets for this house were really cool. We had the pumpkin patch, we had the graveyard, and of course we had the inside of the pumpkin itself when we walked past all the pumpkin seeds hanging. And then with the grand reveal of the Pumpkin Lord at the end, it was a perfect chef's kiss. And, well, that's why it's on this list. And now we move on to my number 9, and my number 9 is Scary Tales Deadly Ever After. If you guys didn't know, I've said this before, and I'm probably going to say it a million times. This was me and Lefty's very first ever haunted house. So it holds a very special place in my heart, but that's not why it's on this list. It's on this list because honestly, it was good. It was really good. It was the first time I was ever able to experience Scary Tales as a haunted house, and it blew my mind. Being able to see all these dark versions of these fairy tales was so cool. And not to forget to mention the facade for this, seeing the witch fly around above you was so cool. That's one thing I love about haunted houses. When they can put a scare actor above you in a flying type of role, I think it's just one of the greatest things that they can ever do. And now we'll move on to my number 8. And my number 8 is from HHN 29 Graveyard Games. Now, to a lot of people that I know, this is probably like their number one, or definitely a top 5 haunted house. But if I'm being quite honest, I have gone through a lot of haunted houses that I have fallen in love with, and this is on the list as well, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Graveyard Games was one of the scariest houses I've ever gone through, and it had some of the best set designs. It's honestly probably one of the best parade building houses in this location. Like, 10 out of 10. People will still quote this house to this day. You walk up to someone and say dork, and they'll probably be like, aha, I get it. But honestly, everything in this house was great. From the grinners to just the ghosts in general. 10 out of 10. Now we move to my number 7, which, just like Graveyard Game, very scary, very intense, but it's a little bit older. We're going to Scarecrow The Reaping. Now, everyone always talks about this house and hypes it up as one of the scariest houses they've ever done, and I will stand on a pedestal and agree with them every single time. This is one of the scariest Horror Nights houses in general that I've ever done, from it either being set in the Dust Bowl era or the scarecrows themselves just being gigantic and terrifying. It was cool. There was actually this one scene, and I love talking about it because it's kind of cool. Towards the end of the house, you just hear footsteps. So you hear boom, 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 and then a scare actor just comes out. It was perfectly timed, perfectly executed, and honestly, if I want to add something else to this house to give it a little bit of a kick, it had one of my favorite non-scare moments in a haunted house. So it's essentially a bird room where the birds are pooping because they're scared of the scarecrows. It's kind of a nice touch because scarecrows, that. And now we're going to move on to number 6, and my number 6 is Slaughter Cinema. Now, who doesn't love a mashup haunted house? It is honestly one of the coolest things ever. But this mashup haunted house isn't your typical mashup haunted house. No, no, no. This Mashup Haunted House is a sight into the future, per se. Being in any one of the movies that are featured in this house can be its own haunted house in the future. And it's turned out to be true with Yeti, so who knows what else can happen. But Slaughter Cinema has one of the coolest facades ever. You have the actual Cary Drive-In, and honestly, it's perfect. From the smell of popcorn in the fog to just going through these different movies, different sets, completely different sets, because you go from dark and gritty to funny to just what's going on. And honestly, I would love for them to do a cinema. I would love for them to do a sequel to this house someday because it would be just cinema. And now going from my number six, moving on to my top five. Coming in at number five, we have my very first ever Halloween Horror Nights house, and that is Urban Legends La Llorona. For the longest, this was a top three house. I'm not lying to you, this house was chef's kiss perfection. But, of course, the more time goes on, the fonder goes the brain, and we get new memories and new experiences. But La Llorona to me was a perfect introduction into Halloween Horror Nights, and it made me the crazy Horror Nights fan that I am today. And truly, it's honestly one of the only houses from HHN 23 that has stuck with me for as long as it has. Because every time I hear any mention of La Llorona for anything, I'm just like, oh, I need to do it. Oh, I need to see it. I almost flew out to California last year just to see this house. But let's talk about the house itself because I realize I'm just rambling on here. So, the house itself was gorgeous. It was a facade of a church, and you walked in, and honestly, you just see a bunch of weeping children, a bunch of weeping women as well, and you get the origin story or the story of La Llorona, which a lot of people in Florida at least aren't typically known for. They don't really know this. It's more of a Mexican folklore. So it was kind of nice to learn the story and have others learn it along with you. So very solid, and I wish they would dive back into urban legends again. Of course, they did it with Chupacabras, but I feel like it would be great to continue it. And now, moving away from my number 5 to my number 4, we are looking at Dollhouse of the Damned from HHN 24, which was honestly a house, like I've said with all of these, that have stuck with me for such a long time. It's glorious. If you've never seen this facade, it's a house made out of doll limbs. Of course, the actual structure work of the house, but doll limbs everywhere. This had all kinds of dolls that you can imagine in here. The smells were just rancid and great. There was baby powder, there was poop. It was just so different for the time. And honestly, it's a perfect house. It's everything you would like to see in a house called Dollhouse of the Damned. And one day I would truly love to revisit this house, maybe with an Icon tie-in or just a sequel altogether. And now we move from number 4 to number 3, and it's funny because we just spoke of icons. This is going to be HHN Icons Capture. Now this house was literally everything that I wanted in a haunted house. I'm not even joking. I've always wanted to see a bunch of these icons together, and I never really had the chance to because things happen. But now I finally had the opportunity to do so. So finally seeing the icons, all of them together, from Fear, the storyteller, the usher, the director, Jack, Chance, everyone all together was a perfect combination and created a perfect house, allowing you to visit the different realms that these characters are from. And then at the end, having a different winner every single time was honestly one of the coolest things that was added to this house. And then going down from that to my number 2, we have Body Collectors Recollections. This is from HHN 25. And this house, I've said it 1,000 times, it had the nicest facade ever. You walked into Shady Brook Asylum, it was snowing, it was quiet, there was thunder, there was lightning. This house was one of the quietest houses I've ever walked into for Halloween Horror Nights. And that's saying something, because usually houses are loud and crazy. This house, quiet and eerie, and it added to that haunted house feeling. And truly, if this house would have been featured at any other event, it probably would have been my favorite house. But if we go to my number 1, we know that it's not, and that number 1 is going to be Jack presents 25 years of monsters and mayhem. This house has everything. It has a bunch of original houses thrown into one. Take what they did with Slaughter Cinema, but with past houses. You had scenes from Gothic, scenes from Scary Tales, scenes from HR Blood and Guts, and so much more, all blended together by one ringleader in Jack the Clown. And this was my first time ever getting able to experience Jack the Clown, so it was truly a blessed experience. And of course, there are 1,000 other original houses that I did love along the way. But these were my 10, and I want to know, what are your favorite original houses of all time? If you haven't gone through 10, tell me your top 5 or your top 3, and if not, just tell me your number 1 favorite house. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and stay excellent, my dudes.